afternoon. I'm Claudia Frere-Anderson, and I'm Director of UW Sustainability Office. Thank you so much again for joining us today in recognition of Campus Sustainability Month. And hopefully you have had the opportunity to join in on the various virtual events this month happening across our 3 campuses. Today, I'm going to be joined by our staff and student team, Toren, Elste, and Christoph, Strouse. And I would like to begin by first doing a land acknowledgement. The University of Washington acknowledges the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. So before we get going on that, I'll today's presentation and overview, I'll go ahead and provide a brief context. We're going to have ample time at the end, so if you have questions, we'll make sure that we give you that opportunity. Probably after about a half hour, we'll go into Q&A. So the Sustainability Action Plan was actually started at the end of last year in winter quarter 2019. And we worked with the campus subject matter experts for the information that you'll be seeing today. And then we announced the strategy of the plan and how it was going to be put together on Earth Day, April 22nd this year, in honor of its 50th year anniversary. And hopefully some of you were also joined us then when that was made publicly available. In July, we announced the full-fledged plan that is available on the website, and that's what we will be going through today, and then answer your questions specifically. So without further ado, I think I'll go ahead and pass the mic over to Toren Elste.
Thank you, Claudia. Hi, everybody. I am Toren Elste, a program specialist here in the UW Sustainability Office. And I'm going to tell you just a little brief introduction about our office and kind of how we started. So in 2008, our office was started under President Mark Emmert. It was started because students had asked the university to develop a plan for carbon reduction. And so the president thought that we should, have a sustainability office to help kind of support the UW Climate Action Plan. Oops. Next slide. Okay, thank you. I'm looking at my notes on a different slide deck, so sorry for that, the brief interruption. So the Sustainability Office at the university is kind of the central resource for all things sustainability related. As a resource, part of our task is to connect campus with subject matter experts related to sustainability and DE&I across all of campus. And obviously, those our grounding principles are DE&I, as well as including our campus community, which extends to Bothell and Tacoma as well. So a little bit about what we do is sustainability reporting. We do green certifications, work with student groups, eco reps, green Greeks, sustainability related RSOs, and then work with academic and operational units to implement projects around the university. But we also support the UW Campus Sustainability Fund as well. And then let's go to the next slide. Great, thank you. So this is a really great graphic. This shows kind of the web of different departments that we coordinate with. So you can see that, there's operational units, there's academic units. So I wish that it was bigger and you guys could really see it. And this is on our website. So I would encourage that later you go and kind of look at this, because you can see just sort of our breadth of reach across campus. Okay, so I think that that's everything that I had. So now we're going to turn it over to Christoph to get into the Sustainability Action Plan.
Thanks, Toren. Hello, everyone. My name is Christoph Strouse, And I'm the coordinator for the Sustainability Action Plan, and I'm also a graduate student in the College of Built Environments, where I study urban planning and public policy. And I'm going to share a little bit about the framework for our plan. So the Sustainability Action Plan from the very beginning was designed to be a tri-campus plan to include Seattle, Bothell, and Tacoma campuses, which you can imagine is quite a feat. It's a complex plan, and each campus is a little bit different. But the idea was to focus the work of all three campuses around 5 guiding principles through 10 targets that we're trying to achieve. You could think of those as goals, and then 25 actions to achieve those targets. And the plan is essentially a 5-year plan, which will then be reviewed and sort of revised on an annual basis to refine what the different actions are each year to help us achieve our targets. The next slide. So the plan has 5 guiding principles. The first one, and the big elephant in the room, is to decarbonize our campus operations, which is primarily focused around our energy use, really specifically at the Seattle campus, around the natural gas energy plant that we have on campus, which is our biggest carbon emitter and greenhouse gas emissions emitter. The next one is to use our resources responsibly. So this is really involves a number of things like procurement, the things we purchase and bring onto campus, as well as the energy in our buildings and making sure that they're as energy efficient as they can be and they're up to LEED standards. The next one is to choose our research conscientiously. So we're really focused on how we can leverage the sustainability plan to inform research that is both not just focused on environmental sustainability, but also social sustainability and economic equity, and how we can use our campus as a living lab, and also the surrounding communities in the Puget Sound region. Our next principle is to ensure that students achieve sustainability literacy. So one of the things we're really excited about with this plan is to really look at how we can further embed sustainability into curriculum with the potential for even creating a sustainability credit for undergraduate students. And then last, but certainly not least, this is really the core of what we've been trying to work on here, is to really center equity inclusion in this plan. So acknowledging that sustainability is much more than just environmental sustainability or resource conservation, but it really is about people and the decisions that we make as individuals and as institutions, which are going to help us further our goals to create a more sustainable society and university system. Next slide. So these next 2 slides are really outlining the 10 targets. So this first slide is the first 5 targets of our plan. As you can see on the left, we sort of outline the targets. In the middle, we have the actions for those targets, and on the right are the guiding principles associated with those targets and actions. So number 1, we're going to double student, staff, and faculty sustainability engagement by 2024. So this is really looking at engagement with students and faculty on our campus to make sure that they're really engaged in this plan, and we're all sort of moving forward on the same page with advancing sustainability. The second target is one UW-wide sustainability framework by 2022. And this is really focused around a common understanding of what sustainability means on the campus or in the UW system. So looking at a common sustainability definition, some that will inform learning outcomes. And one of the things I'm particularly interested in is we're going to be doing a feasibility study for a student sustainability research hub. So we'll probably be piloting that at the Seattle campus, but we're hoping eventually to have one of those on each of the campuses eventually. Target number 3 is to double our sustainability-oriented research projects by 2025. So really, we need to focus on understanding what we're already doing in terms of sustainability research, but really expanding this idea of using the campus and the community as a living laboratory for sustainability, both environmental sustainability and social sustainability. Target number 4 is comprehensive equitable purchasing by 2022. So we already have an equitable purchasing framework. But now we want to review and revisit that. Also bringing in students and other diverse voices on campus to inform what that looks like. I'm excited about this because this is also an opportunity to start to look at the idea of circularity, or the circular economy as folks are terming it. So looking at the whole life cycle of goods. So from purchasing to use to how we dispose of them and hopefully reuse and reclaim them. Target number 5 is 5% lower emissions from professional travel by 2025. And in doing a gap analysis of our sustainability, we really zeroed in on professional travel of faculty. Faculty go to a lot of conferences, and there's a lot of air travel involved. And so that's really where we're going to be focusing, is determining that, along with developing a set of carbon offsets for travel, and how faculty can easily use those to offset their travel for their research. Next slide. So target 6 is to have 35% of our food purchased locally by 2025. We're already doing a lot of that at UW. A lot of our food is focused and purchased locally. Another part of this action is also looking at not just locally purchased foods, but what kind of foods are those? Are those foods that are healthy? Are those foods that are supporting sustainable agriculture and sustainable ecosystems? Target number 7, we'll look at reducing our single occupancy commutes by 12% or less by 2028. We're already been really focused on this. UW Transportation has been doing a great job of continuing to lower our single occupancy commutes. So getting more folks to take light rail. As light rail expands, it'll become a little bit easier. Although some folks will always, really need to use vehicles, single occupancy vehicles, perhaps, their parents, and they need to drop their kids off. So it's a challenge, but that's something we're committed to, and we're well on track to achieving. Target number 8 is to lower our energy use intensity by 15% by 2025. So this is really focused on our building use, energy use intensity. So EUI is the term that's used to determine how much energy is used per square footage. And we're really focused on developing a system that's going to help us, create a more revised and more efficient system for all of our existing buildings. Our newer buildings are much easier because they're all LEED Gold by our green building standards, but we have a lot of older buildings on campus that need to have renovations take place. So when those renovations take place, it's an opportunity for us to make them more energy efficient, to install sensors, to install building energy management systems to help us achieve that target. Target number 9 is 10% less solid waste by 2025. So this target ties into both our purchasing and our food target. And UW Recycling and facilities are already doing a fantastic job of helping us divert compostable waste and making sure we're recycling to reduce our landfill. And we're going to continue to advance that and increase the amount of materials we keep out of landfill and that we either recycle or recompost. Part of that is also going to be working really closely with housing and food services with maintaining sort of low waste campus kitchens that are already being implemented. And our final target is 45% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. So this is a big one. There's a lot of big moving pieces to this. One of the big pieces is to really look at a plan for replacing our gas powered campus plant with electric energy. So that'll be carbon free. Another big piece is to electrify UW transportation services. So looking at all of the fleets that we currently have and transitioning those to electric vehicles, creating more charging stations on campus. And one that I've been involved with through UW Solar is to implement a campus solar plan. So we've already done an initial assessment of all of the buildings at the UW Seattle campus to determine their feasibility for solar. And now we're going to be looking at UW Bothell and UW Tacoma and determining the feasibility of solar on those campuses so we can start to make informed decisions about which buildings make sense to place solar on over the next 5 and 10 and 20 years. And I think that's it for me. Yeah, and next I'll be kicking it off to Claudia.
Thanks, Christoph. So the next couple of slides, it's just going to talk about how we're looking at the implementation. So we announced the plan in July. That was during summer. So of course, faculty and students were we did not have everyone back at that time. But now we do. And so we're fully up and running with the implementation. So the implementation strategy is actually organized across these main areas. An executive committee oversees the progress of the Sustainability Action Plan. So the 10 targets that Christoph just walked us through is overseen by an action owner and teams who report out on progress to the executive committee. Our vice president of facilities is a sponsor of that. Who then is working with a tri-campus executive committee, which also include 3 faculty members, Bothell and Tacoma, the medical centers, and intercollegiate athletics. So each target has an action team, and they are the subject matter experts responsible for identifying the areas for improvement that we currently have on our targets. And they will also be the ones guiding the work that will help us move on to the next year for fiscal year 2022. Communications and participation in the plan is really what our office is supporting with and ensuring that we are providing connectivity, and information to student or faculty or staff members who are interested in being part of the plan directly. And then all of this is underpinned by a governance framework, which includes the action teams, our executive committee, a tri-campus environmental stewardship committee that has been actually preceded even this work that's been around for a while on an annual basis. So if we go to the next slide, this just kind of depicts, who's a responsible party, which is the unit or department. And this is specified in the Sustainability Action Plan. You'll see where it says responsible party, and you'll see the department listed there. The action owner is the actual individual or individuals who we are working with to manage the target. I see several of you here on the Zoom, which is great to have you involved. So please don't be shy and give a wave if you want to be recognized as in your responsibility. And the action teams are inclusive of staff, people from facilities, if it's operations related, faculty members whose areas of expertise touch on those areas, and students, because as we know, students are here to learn, and this is just a great opportunity to marry both the learning and also the involvement with the Sustainability Action Plan and our students. So the the targets themselves are kind of the overarching goal, and within those targets are 1 to 4 actions. And then it gets even more drilled out into what are the steps that are going to be taken this coming year, and that's what we're measuring against. So next slide. So all of this work, and we're now up and running, as a guiding principle with equity and inclusion, that's something that we're going to be really putting together this coming year. In partnership with the College of the Environment's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, we are putting together a quarterly series of events. Our first one we kicked off was in July, and we had a DEI and Sustainability Summit, and hopefully some of you had the opportunity to attend that. Our next one is coming up next Thursday on October 29th from 10:30 to 12. 90 minutes, and it's going to be the second part 2 of the series, where we're going to be talking about the intersectionality of DEI and sustainability from the lens of social justice. So that's so keep your eyes on that. We will have more communications related to that event. So we are meeting with our action teams on a quarterly basis. We have our committees, of course, as we know, the university, there's a lot of committees organizationally. I think that's just how it works. And then we have a dashboard where we're going to be providing access to the progress each of those targets are doing on a quarterly basis. We currently have just titles of the targets and what the actions are at this point, but as we are getting the quarterly updates from the action teams, that will be available on the link here that you see, which is a dashboard dedicated to the Sustainability Action Plan. So below, you'll just kind of note the matrix of when we plan to have these meetings, and the dates of when the seasons when they're going to be happening. We were able to provide an overview with the Board of Regents before the academic year and right before we completed the plan. We're hoping to do an annual update to them as well, just to provide information on the progress and the work that has been happening across our campuses. So with that, I'll go ahead and now hand it back to Christoph to talk about how we can get folks involved.
Great, thanks, Claudia. Yeah, so there's really one primary way we're looking for folks to get involved, although there'll be others throughout the year. The primary way is we're asking folks who are interested in helping us implement this to volunteer to participate in a faculty and student advisory work group. So these work groups, currently, the way we're imagining this and planning for this is to sort of have them structured around 3 focus areas that will incorporate a number of different targets within them. So the first one is really those first 3 targets, sort of engagement, academics, and research. The next one would be focused around purchasing, food, and waste. So that's that sort of circularity group. And then the third one is really a combination of all the targets we're trying to achieve to lower our carbon and our greenhouse gas emissions. So that's energy use, transportation, and buildings. So we're currently, you're welcome to get in touch with us this quarter if to express your interest. But we'll really be formally sort of forming these groups up next quarter during winter quarter at the beginning of the quarter. And from there, essentially what we'll do is, as you express your interest, we'll sort of pair you with one of these working groups and get you focused on helping achieve some of these specific targets or actions, depending upon what your interests are and or expertise, depending on if you're a student or a faculty or whatever. So you can contact us down there at the bottom. That's our email for the Sustainability Action Plan. And yeah, get in touch with us this quarter. Let us know you're interested or you're curious, you want to find out more. I'll be the one checking that email, so I'll be getting in touch with you, and we can have a conversation about what you're interested in and how you might want to be involved. It's not a huge commitment. It's really based upon your availability, and it's really a couple of meetings throughout the quarter, and then maybe some sub meetings depending on the work that you're doing. So there'll be some other opportunities to get involved. We'll also be doing a survey as well. Probably winter quarter, it might be spring quarter, it might be at the end of the year, but probably winter quarter. We're going to be doing a survey also to get folks' input to help inform how we're going to be looking at next year's action plan. So we'll be sort of revising and reviewing this year's work and then preparing for next year's work in the spring quarter. So we'll probably be looking for folks' input during the winter quarter as well. And with that, that's really all of our presentation. Thank you very much. Now we're just going to open it up to questions for all of us, for Claudia and Toren and myself. So
we welcome you to unvideo if you'd like. We appreciate it. And this is now open Q&A, and really want to have a conversation. And I think everyone's still muted, so we can fix that. Thank you very much. Thank you, James. I think you should be able to unmute there shortly. There you go. Thank you. So Damon has just told us that everyone should be able to unmute. Wonderful. All right. Hello, James. Good to see you.
Hi, Claudia. Good to see you. May I ask a question? Or a couple
Absolutely.
of questions, multi-part thing. So again, James Fezzelbaum, I'm now with Earth and Space Sciences. So within the College of the Environment, which definitely aligns with the sustainability principles. First question, and you and I have already talked about this long before when we worked together, but with the intersection of diversity, equity, inclusion, can you tell me how business diversity interfaces with that?
Yes, that's a really great question. The business diversity program is also where sustainability and the business diversity program are both under UW facilities. And we currently are working with them on a couple of different ways. One is to just, well, they are part of the target, which is the equitable purchasing target. We have, I believe, Claudia Christensen here is also joining in through phone and Zoom, who is from procurement services, who is working with the business diversity and equity program to provide the, and Claudia, feel free to chime in, but to actually look at our goals for spend with minority women and minority owned businesses, local minority women owned businesses. And so that is target, the first year, I believe, is looking at making sure that there is a baseline for that. And there's been ongoing efforts with the diversity and equity initiative through procurement services and purchasing. So it's in the plan, target 4.
Thank you.
And we're also tracking aspects of EDI with our STARS framework. So STARS is how we track sustainability. It's our sustainability tracking assessment and rating system. And within that, there's EDI categories that look at, diversity of employees, employee compensation, and a number of other categories. So those are some other aspects that aren't directly related or aren't directly targets in the plan, but they are supported by our STARS framework.
And Damon just sent a link to next week's event, the DEI and Sustainability Forum. Hopefully you can attend that as well. We have actually one of the former directors of the Business Diversity Program at UW will be one of the panel speakers, Jessica Ward. So we're excited to have that panel discussion next week.
Yeah, that's going to be a great talk.
I see wonderful faces and names who have been part of our office's work and program development. This has been very much a collective effort, even as far as the initiation of the planning. We see Sean Schmidt from UW Tacoma, who is really integral to a lot of the programs that we are now doing. So we were fortunate to have worked with Sean in his role as the assistant director and also oversaw the reporting. So we're jealous that UW Tacoma got him and he left us, but but we're all still together. So that's great. That's the good thing about being at the university. So shout out to Sean. And also Claudia Christensen is one of our subject matter experts that we have been working with on purchasing target and also the business diversity and equity policy and ensuring that we are continuing to work with our departments to continue awareness and also how can we facilitate as a university our processes so it's not, so we're taking out a little bit of the, the barriers that makes it possible for departments to spend with our diverse suppliers. So shout out to Claudia. All right. So I think we have a few more minutes, but if there aren't any questions, we can go ahead and give everyone back their time. There's another question from James. And and how does the sustainability plan compare to other campuses? I can start, and Toren and Christoph, I'll have you chime in if you wish. I don't want to be the only one speaking. Our plan, I believe, is, I would say, comparable to how other universities are looking at sustainability and planning for it beyond what a lot of schools have done on the climate action plan in the early 2000s, if you will. You know, sustainability offices have been around for about 10 years, you know, some a little bit longer than others, maybe like a couple of years. I know Western had theirs started in 2006, I believe, but relatively still, you know, young, but also evolving. And I think our plan very much looks at sustainability from not just the environmental lens, but also a broader lens. And that seems to be the trend amongst other higher ed institutions at this point. I just saw a really great example that Princeton, someone sent me on Princeton's work in ensuring that diversity equity is part of sustainability, and there's a you know, a growing work on the connectedness of social justice, because climate justice, racial justice is kind of shared through the social justice lens. So Christoph, Toren, do you want to add any other thoughts you have on how? I always think that we're, of course, the University of Washington's great, but we know that there's a lot of schools who are doing this and doing really wonderful work across the board. And so that's one good thing about higher ed, I think, taking a lead on what we can do in action and not just talk. So
I haven't, oh, sorry, Christoph. I was just
No,
gonna say
go
really
ahead.
quick. I haven't seen, you know, that many other schools' sustainability plans that are of a similar scale. I think that ours is a bit more in depth than some of the ones that I've seen, just because of the scale of our campus. So yeah, I would say ours is perhaps more in depth.
Yeah, and you know, I'll just add, you know, I did review a number of other campuses' sustainability plans and other sustainability frameworks. Actually was doing some of that work with Sean Schmidt when he was still in our office. And we did some evaluation of other frameworks and other plans. And, you know, certainly our plan is comprehensive and comparable, but I would also point out that each university is different in their needs. And you have to sort of strike a balance between, you know, being extremely comprehensive and trying to, you know, track everything in your plan, which we're already doing with our STARS framework. So that's sort of where we started from as our baseline. Since we're already reporting on those categories, we thought, well, let's at least evaluate what we've done in STARS, and perhaps that's a starting place for our plan. And what we did was, after doing our STARS report for 2018, again, Sean Schmidt contributed to that report substantively. We did a gap analysis from our 2018 STARS report, and really that became the starting place for this plan. So that way it was really focused on what aren't we already doing that we really need to focus on in these next 5 years. So if you look at the plan closely, you'll kind of be like, gosh, why did they pick that really particular thing? That kind of seems odd. That's not, if I was picking something from that category, I would have gone, you know, I would have listed about 5 other things. And that's the reason why, is because instead of just doing maybe a broad swath of everything you could imagine from food, we really zeroed in on what we needed to do to advance our own sustainability, particular to the UW system. So that's really a lot of where the difference comes in terms of how maybe it's not comparable, just as much as ways in which it might be comparable with things like resource, you know, efficiency and conservation, and lowering our greenhouse gas emissions, and engaging with students and all of that.
Thank you.
The next question we have is from Julie Johnson, which is a great one. Was the Okanagan Charter considered in the development of the plan? As a systems-focused approach, this seems like an opportunity to connect a holistic view of health in sustainability. That's a really great resource, Julie. Thank you for posing this question. Okay, and I'm aware, I've heard about it through some conversations we've had through the Campus Sustainability Fund and the Resilience Lab, actually. So I learned about it that way. It was not, the framework was not part of the development. However, it is currently on a list of literature we are looking at for Target 2 as we are working towards developing a UW-wide sustainability framework. And so that charter is definitely on the references because looking at us from a systems perspective, it looks at people, obviously the people aspect, which is fairly key. So we are going to be incorporating that into one of the targets, but not, it was not part of the specifically, it just got tied into the plan as it is, but that's a really, really great reference. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would just add one of the sort of foundational features of this plan is the fact that it is modular and that it's going to be revised every 5 years. And within those 5 years, there's those sort of annual revisions of the actions within the targets. So within the target, developing a sustainability framework, there's going to be opportunity for us to bring in things like, the Okanagan Charter, and to really look at intersectional sustainability and in terms of a definition of sustainability, a sustainability framework, and with the hopes that those types of lenses, perspectives, and systems sort of understanding can be really incorporated into the next iteration of the plan.
Thank you. So our next question came from Julian. So regarding intersectionality, how are these sustainability initiatives including the interests of people with disabilities, including but not limited to people with special mobility needs? And it is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, which I did not know. So thank you for sharing that. So that in particular would be looking at our transportation. When we went through the planning, it was looking at, Christoph pointed out the STARS gap, knowing, being able to see where we could do better. With regard to co-benefits and obviously looking at making sure that we're not excluding populations from what we are setting out in the plan. It is currently not something that is outlined in our commuting and commuting reduction. However, this is actually a really good area where we need to get this question kind of tied in with transportation services and also our space planning to make sure that we're addressing ADA and people with disabilities, to make sure that that is included into the future updates for the plan. So the framework is going, that's what it is for the next 5 years, but the actual steps are going to be updated annually. So that's an area that I think would be very important to, connect with transportation services as we look at updating the commuting reduction target for next year.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Julian, because there certainly is, in our campus, as with other campuses, there's always challenges around mobility with such a vast sort of diversity and difference of development that's happened over time on a university campus, wherein new buildings are up to are up to the highest ADA standards and are very accessible in terms of within the building scale and the site scale. But as soon as you move away from a building, all of a sudden you might be faced with pathways that are not as accessible or in need of perhaps a renovation in some ways to make them more connected with the rest of the campus. And one thing I will say is that I know that there's a group in transportation services that is looking at a new mobility framework at the Seattle campus and how that is going to relate to the rest of the university district and the new light rail station that's coming. So I'm glad that you bring that up, because I think this is an opportunity for us to, within this plan, but also as we're working closer with transportation services, to really bring up that topic and to make sure that that's really integrated into this future campus mobility plan. So thank you for that.
Thank you for addressing the question.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The another question is, it's combined fund drive season. So what charities would support the sustainability work? I would say there's a whole host, probably depending on the area of interest. I can think of like there's a campus food pantry. I know that serves students and food insecurity. So I know they have a fund through the UW system that you could donate to. There's also the general one that started through our office, which is a Husky Green Fund. And that supports the different programs that we, not particularly just for the plan, but just what our office does, student activities. We don't have a whole lot of money in there partly because we don't, thankfully, because we haven't been just focusing on fundraising, but that's one that if you wanted to just connect to in terms of being able to put your CFD donation, that's one out there that's on the CFD website. But I do believe there are some, we can look into that actually and come up with a few more, because I know there's many more and I don't want to shortchange other departments and things that you can donate to that would be sustainability oriented at UW. So I will follow up with you on that. That's a great
Thanks for
question.
continuing the research.
Absolutely. Okay, and another one. Thank you for that, Julian. That is a really good resource. So this looks like it's an online committee meeting next in a few weeks in November to talk about this issue on mobility and access in Pierce County. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I'm pulling the notes from comments, so definitely follow up with you, Julian, about that framework.
Appreciate it. This is a great group because this is, I really enjoy having this conversation rather than just presenting information, but rather sharing information with one another. Hopefully this is also an avenue for you to connect with the other people that who are asking questions or who have resources through these online formats. Since we're not on campus, you know, we sort of miss that, like, oh, hey, I recognize you from somewhere else. And so hopefully this is an opportunity to network with one another as well. Okay, let's see. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything else. I want to thank Toren and Christoph and Damon for the work in putting this together. Your time and interest with the Sustainability Action Plan. I'm excited to be working with you all. We're excited to be seeing more of you in our more virtual events and also just discussions about the plan from the various departments that you represent. And I think we would love to continue to hear from you. So please email us. Always go to our website and like us on Facebook so that you can see what's happening. And we are really appreciative of your attention and also being part of this. So, and if there's anything else we should be looking at in terms of the plan today and also for moving forward, we want to hear from you. Absolutely.
Yeah, I went ahead and put in our email so you can get in touch with us at sustainabilityplan@uw.edu if you have any further information, ideas, suggestions, ways you might want to be involved. Thank you all for joining us.
All right. Thank you. I think that's a wrap.